Okay, welcome to the May 5th, 2020 City Council meeting. Again, we are coming to you virtually. This is a regular meeting of City Council. We'll be holding it electronically pursuant to adopted policy 20-01. As has been typical with our virtual meetings, we are giving folks about 5 minutes to join our meeting, recognizing it's a process for some people. Again, thank you for joining us. And I do want to speak to public comment during this time. During our virtual meetings, public comment is a little bit more complex than our in-person format. Even though you are submitting comments under an Ask a Question tab, this is not a question and answer period. This is our regular council meeting. It is not a town hall. The software that we're using to conduct our virtual meetings does not allow the city to rename the tab to public comment. So we appreciate your understanding that it is not an ask a question time, it is a public comment time. Public comment is expected to occur under item number 5 on our agenda this evening, and there are 3 ways to participate. Some folks have chosen to submit public comments in advance of the meeting, and these will be read into the record by staff. Public comments during the meeting may be submitted by typing into the Ask a Question sidebar. Please include your name and address. The messages are not visible to others in the public. Therefore, staff will read your comment into the public. Again, even though it's an Ask a Question, we will not be responding to questions during our public comment period. Finally, if you would like to provide oral comments during our public comment period, please indicate that in the Ask a Question box. Please let our staff know you would like to be connected by telephone. You would include your name, address, and in this case, obviously a phone number so we can reach you. You will then receive a call back from staff during that agenda item. And once that connection is made, I will recognize you because you have given your name to staff. They will repeat it to me, and our time period will start. Again, all public comment is to be directed to council, and we request that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And again, we request your patience while we're working through this virtual process. So again, if you joined us just in the midst of my spiel, I want to let you know that we are waiting till 7:05 to allow folks to join us virtually. And again, going over some of the guidelines for public comment. I've sucked up about 3.5 minutes now, so we've only got about 1.5 minutes to wait till the rest of the folks are able to join us. And in the meantime, for those of you on there, I want to hold up my I voted sticker. I hope folks were able to vote via mail or bravely to attend one of the polling places if you're not at an at-risk population, and I know they were set up to allow for social distancing. So I hope that everyone had an opportunity to vote today in the elections that were held. And with that, we've got about 1 minute left, folks. Again, I would request that you look at the Ask a Question button to enter public comment, and remind folks again, it is not a question and answer period. This is the time where you get to present your views to council. So we're pausing for about 30 more seconds. Okay, welcome. Again, we are starting at 7:05 to allow folks to join the meeting virtually. This is the May 5th, 2020 Lone Tree City Council meeting. We will be holding the meeting virtually. I am formally opening our meeting, and I will ask our city clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Carpenter.
Present.
Councilmember Shaw.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Brunick.
Here.
Mayor Millet.
Here. We do have a quorum. I would now ask that we stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think I speak for all of us when I say I cannot wait to do that in communion with my partners on council and our dedicated staff and the folks in the public that wish to join us. So with that, though, we are moving on to number 3, amendments to the agenda. And there are no amendments unless I hear otherwise from a council member. I'm pausing for you. So hearing none, the agenda is adopted as published. Moving on to conflict of interest inquiry. I will ask our city clerk to go through the roll on any conflict of interest.
Council members Anderson,
No conflict.
Carpenter,
No conflict.
Shaw,
No conflict.
Mayor Pro Tem Brunick,
No conflict.
and Mayor Millet.
No conflict. Thank you. Moving on now to public comment. Item number 5 on our agenda. And again, I'm going to remind folks of the process for public comment. And again, apologies if you're hearing me say this over again, but we want to make sure folks have the ability to contribute. So public comment is now open for items that are not on our agenda this evening. As a reminder, comments are limited to 3 minutes, and we ask that you state your name and address for the record. Public comment is your time to express your views to council. While there will be no back and forth response, council is actively listening and will direct staff to reach out with responses as appropriate. I want to reiterate the direction provided at the beginning of the meeting. During our virtual meetings, public comment can be submitted in writing prior to the meeting and will be read into the record by staff. Public comment can be typed in the Ask a Question sidebar during the meeting and will be read into the record by staff. And requests for connection via telephone to provide oral public comment can be made in the Ask a Question sidebar. Please include a phone number along with your name and address so you can receive a call from city staff. Again, there will be no response from council or staff during our public comment. As stated earlier, it is not question and answer, but you can always provide feedback to the city by emailing information@cityoflonetree.com. I will now ask our city clerk, Mr. Robb, have we received any prior written public comment?
Thank you, Mayor. We have not received any prior written comment.
Mr. Robb, has anyone submitted public comment via the chat function?
I do not see any public comments in the chat.
Thank you. Mr. Robb, has anyone requested to access our public comment via the telephone?
I do not see any requests to be contacted via conference call.
Okay. I'm going to give it a bit of a pause to make sure there isn't anyone trying to reach us. But okay, I'm not hearing anything right now, so I will again remind anyone that they can always provide feedback to the city via information@cityoflonetree.com by emailing information@cityoflonetree.com. Hearing nothing further on public comment, I am going to move on to item number 6, announcements and presentations. And I'm going to turn it, we're going to start with the city response to COVID-19 and our city manager, Seth Hoffman. Seth.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. It's good to see all of you tonight. We are continuing to, our staff is continuing to work really hard to throw everything that they have and we have, both at the health and the economic crisis that we're all facing. I think that we've been really fortunate in a way that we were able to pivot so quickly to put the fight out there, and I'm really happy with the results that we're seeing. In fact, I want to mention that Austin did a presentation for the state City and County Manager Association last week about our COVID-19 response and our task force. and he was asked now to give that presentation to the National City and County Managers Association. So, it's always been our goal to be a national model. I think that's one indicator that we're hitting that target. One update that's moving quickly that we don't have in this presentation is where things stand with Park Meadows. So I thought I would take a minute right now to talk through that just for a second. We had been working with Park Meadows, with Tri-County, to get Park Meadows to be open this week on a very limited basis in the safest way possible. And so that was about ready to happen as soon as today, potentially, when we all were caught off guard by a amended public health order from Colorado Department of Health and Environment that specifically just added a little bit of language that said that indoor malls were not allowed to open. That was really disappointing to us because we'd worked so hard, and really the mall had worked so hard with Tri-County. Tri-County had really been impressed with the work that and the amount of signage, just the thinking that Park Meadows had put into it. And so we had every reason to believe, based on that input from and support from Tri-County, that it would be allowed to happen. Unfortunately, Tri-County was also caught off guard by that amended order yesterday. So we pivoted really quickly, working again with Tri-County, Park Meadows, and now with Douglas County. We've put together a plan, and Douglas County is going to submit a variance request to the Department of Health and Environment, which is something that the Safer at Home order allows individual counties to basically ask for exemptions from certain parts of the Safer at Home public health order. And so they had been thinking about doing that anyway on a broader level for a handful of different items. But what we agreed to today was just submit a variance request just for that enclosed mall portion of the public health order. So that's going to be the specific request from Douglas County. I think that we have a really solid plan in place. I think that the work that Pam and her team have done have really put us in a good spot. I've also been told by Tri-County and by Pam that our face covering order, which you can see mine right here, is going to be helpful both in the approval, hopefully from the Department of Health, and also the mall believes that it will significantly help with customer confidence. So I think those were two. That was good recognition that what you all did was the right thing. So good job on that. And I think that that puts us in a good position. The amount of stuff that goes into this variance request is really long and detailed. If you have any questions about what it means, happy to talk about it offline, but I probably won't bore you with it, other than it does require a mitigation plan or a suppression plan for COVID-19, and also some sign off from medical providers, things like that. So we're all working in parallel to try to get this done as quickly as possible, with the goal of submitting it to the state as soon as maybe tomorrow, if not tomorrow, Thursday morning. And we don't really have a good sense of what the turnaround from the State Department of Health will be, but this is relatively straightforward. And Tri-County has told us equivocally that that they can't see any public health reason that the mall shouldn't be allowed to open with all the precautions that they've taken. Mayor, what did I miss in there? You've been spending a lot of time on this as well.
So Seth, the only, I don't know if my box, am I on or not? I can never tell. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, the only thing I would like to add is the tremendous work and partnership with the Douglas County Commissioners.
Yeah.
They have taken the lead and are taking the lead with presenting this because that is the format that has to move forward. I want to commend them for their great work and the Douglas County staff because their efforts are so very much appreciated. I want to echo Seth's comments regarding Park Meadows. We have heard from our local public health experts that they would feel safer in Park Meadows than they would in some of the other retail locations that have been able to open up throughout the state because of the extent to which the Park Meadows Retail Resort has gone to with putting in no-touch surfaces, the cleanliness, the signage, the markings for social distance, the new air filters that they have purchased, the plan that they have with cameras throughout the mall that can identify when potential social distancing guidelines are being broken and that they can then send their local security staff. The fact that they are going to have employees with masks ready to distribute if customers do not have them coming there. And again, want to echo Seth's comments that the general manager of the mall, Pam Kelly, we know and love, repeated over and over again the importance of the face covering order to her and the public confidence in reopening the facility. So we didn't anticipate that, but it was wonderful to hear. So, and again, Seth, you and your team, phenomenal job working alongside the county to make sure we're getting the information that we need in a timely manner. And huge shout out to Jeff Hallwell and Austin Good for their work on all of this, in addition to Seth's great leadership. So that's all I had, Seth. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. So we'll move on then to what we had planned to update you all on, and we got some. I think we're on the wrong side. Oh, there you go. No, you're good.
Technical glitch. I apologize for that, but I'm back.
Hey, you got 3 minutes. No.
There we go. I'm ready to go.
Okay, so what we're going to do is just have Kristen, then Kelly, then Jeff, then Bill, and then Kirk just give you some real quick updates about our different initiatives. So Kristen, will you start?
Yes, thanks, Seth. Sorry about that slight technical glitch, but good to see everyone tonight again. As we have been doing in the past, just a quick update on our continued city services. As you've seen throughout the city, there's still a lot of work going on with our public works crew. Our building department is continuing to issue building permits and everything is business as usual, which is great. We have kind of shifted our focus now, though, to looking at kind of starting to look at reopening the office, and a lot of our staff is still able to work remotely for the majority of them, which we're continuing to do as we work through some of the details that were in the Safer at Home order. But did want to give council a quick update that we are spending a lot of time in the process of ordering and installing equipment for a safe return to the office. Some things are back ordered, so we're getting things as soon as we can, but I did include a picture on the right that does show some of the new screens that we've installed at the municipal building to protect the public as well as our staff when we are able to open that facility back up. And then we also continue to develop new procedures on a day-to-day basis as we work towards opening the buildings. One really good example of that is we are aiming to have some municipal courts start back up towards the end of this month, and making sure that the Civic Center and the municipal court procedures are in place, again, to protect the people coming to court, but also for the staff and the judge participating. So really proud of everyone's hard work in these areas, and we'll continue to update you as we have more information.
Let's go ahead and keep moving forward. Go ahead, Kelly.
Great, thanks. Good to see everybody tonight. The Community Connection and Wellbeing team has been hard at work on a number of different programs that are really intended to support Lone Tree, the citizens, the businesses, and the city employees. So tonight I'll just quickly highlight a few of the programs that they've been working on, beginning with Lone Tree Feeds. This has just been an overwhelming support from the community for this program, and has resulted in collecting over $33,000 that has gone to support our local restaurants, who in turn are providing that food delivery to our first responders with the Lone Tree Police Department, South Metro Fire, and our healthcare workers, excuse me, at Skyridge Medical Center. So that has just been a tremendous program. Next slide, please. The mask project is the other one that is still going strong thanks to the dedication that we have from so many of our wonderful volunteers who are still busy sewing masks with the donated supplies that they have. The masks are being provided to employees at essential businesses throughout Lone Tree and to other businesses who need them. And to date, I'm told we have delivered over 620 masks to over 38 different businesses. So that's fantastic. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that there will be a community blood drive on Wednesday, May 27th at the Lone Tree Arts Center. There are still many slots available for this, so people can just call the number there or visit the Vitalant website to sign up for that. And also just check our city website for more information on this and some of the other programs that we have going on. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Great to see you tonight. I'm here to report on the Economic Recovery Team and all the great work that they've been doing, focusing on the future for the city of Lone Tree and how we'll help our business community and our residents get through this pandemic. There are several things to highlight on top. It would be to remind you that we remain very active with the Lone Tree Eats and Lone Tree Works campaigns to promote our curbside restaurant businesses that are very busy continuing to operate, including what they are doing today on Cinco de Mayo, but also the launch of Lone Tree Works, supporting companies that are also doing very creative things to promote their companies or provide services to our community that also deserve recognition. Speaking of Lone Tree Works, yesterday was the day one that Cochlear Americas is calling the city of Lone Tree its home. They're officially in their building, and we're now home to about 300 employees and a international medical device company. So beyond our retail jobs, primary jobs will be a very big piece of bringing our economy back. The Paycheck Protection Program is in its round 2 of activity. I'm sure you see a lot of media around this, but statewide in Colorado, over 113,000 loans have been issued. About $10.4 billion have come to the state of Colorado. We know many Lone Tree companies are applying for this. We don't have final numbers yet, but even today I worked with 2 different companies that are in the middle of their applications, and even our own banking institutions, Canvas Credit Union, for round 2 is part of this program and processing loans as well. Reopening our economy is the next phase that we're in. It's about communicating with our retailers and office users, but in a very visible way, that the retailers that are beginning to open their facilities and look at the various needs they might have, communication, responsiveness, and tracking of our business community as they open will be a big part of this. One anecdote, you'll notice if you drive around town that our smaller employers like Inspire Boutique that you see on the right are a bit more nimble and able to open. Mike's Camera opened on Friday, Inspire opened over the weekend, Lumber Liquidators opened on Monday. The bigger retailers are taking a bit more time, but that's even happening slowly as well. Dillard's opened today, and we expect to see more over the course of this week. And then my final note is that the work of the Economic Recovery Team will really heat up when we have to think about investing in our future. Though the date is still to be determined when all of our retailers can open, that doesn't end our work. There will be a lot of activity that we'll all have to focus on around how to improve our shopping centers, our office districts, and help our families that are potentially looking for work or needing assistance as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Since last regular City Council meeting, the big news, of course, is the publication of the Safer at Home order. And unlike the previous order, the Safer at Home order was published with a whole lot of resources supporting it. There was specific sector-specific guidance, there was signage, best practices. So the Public Health Initiative team has been spending time going through the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment website to make sure that we know where all those resources are. We're guiding citizens, both citizens and staff, to those resources so that they can more effectively do their jobs. The second big focus area, and Kristen kind of talked about it a little bit, is looking at our internal operations. So we set up an update to our operations manual, which outlines the COVID specific parameters that we're going to be operating under currently and when the rest of the staff gets back to the office. So we've really been able to look at what some of the best practices that other local jurisdictions are using and incorporate that into our operations manual so that we can operate effectively, efficiently, and also safely. And that's all I have.
Good evening, everybody. So just a few things that trying to update you since the last time. Our community partnership unit, investigations unit have started to come back in and not just work from home, but they've also been out contacting businesses when they started opening to make sure that we had good compliance, and also they've delivered masks and they have provided what guidelines have come out from Tri-County Health and provided a copy of the public health order. And, you know, every once in a while we'll still run into a business that seems like they don't know what's going on or they don't know the most updated information. So the contacts have been really good as far as making sure people are on the same page. And we're preparing for Friday when the mask order takes effect, but we're continuing to reach out to various businesses in anticipation of that order. And trying to work with them to make sure they're prepared to, you know, put in good procedures when that occurs. And we're really emphasizing, I think it's important to note that, you know, we're really emphasizing that, you know, we want to partner with them. We want to make sure they get to stay open and that their employees are protected. So that's really the message that we come out with those businesses when we talk to them, and, you know, and obviously in conjunction with Jeff's, all of Jeff's group. And so I think that's going well. We haven't heard of a lot of pushback on that. In fact, I think most of it's been pretty encouraging and folks seem to be understanding what we're trying to accomplish. So I think the message is, you know, being well received. So we'll see how Friday goes. I will tell you that Monday, you know, Costco implemented their mask requirement. I've stayed in contact with some officers who worked extra duty over there, and really there was no issues that occurred. It was pretty seamless as far as their operation. I think Costco has gotten a little bit of negative feedback from the public, but in reality, from the masses of millions of people that go to their stores, I think it's been pretty minimal. I spoke to Chief Serapis over at Parker. They did not have any issues at their Costco either. So, and I haven't seen any news on that at all. So that's a good sign that hopefully when we start Friday, things will go pretty smoothly. And we're going to start bringing all of our staff back at about 50%. So the records department will start working about half in the office, half out. Again, great shout out to Tyler or for Bill's group that in the IT department who really got those guys set up for something that, quite frankly, I didn't think was possible before this all happened. So, and then just real quick note on calls for service trends. So, not that the numbers have been super dramatic, but we have had probably twice as many property crimes that have occurred in the city. That's pretty much what you're seeing around the state, around the county. Nothing, no burglaries into homes, but car break-ins and things like that. So we're continuing to try to track that and you know, look at hotspots where people might be, but mainly it's still just, you know, opportunity when somebody sees something in a car and they break into it. We've seen a little bit of an uptick in domestics over the last and kind of minor disturbances, but really I'd say for the most part, you know, we're overall we're down in calls for service. but we're actually up in activity because our officers are doing so much neighborhood patrolling and crime prevention type stuff that they're staying pretty busy with doing those types of things. And then just on kind of a nice note, if you get a chance to look at the website, Denise has done a great job posting this stuff, but the officers have been doing quite a few birthday runs where they're driving their cars through. They did one, I think, yesterday, and they're going to do another one tomorrow. I ended up fielding a call from a retired FBI agent who lives in Heritage Hills requesting that we drive by. And typically, they only ask for one car, but if we have more available, we do that. And anyway, that's gone really well and it's been well received, I think, by the public. And I think it's a really nice thing that we're doing as far as whenever we can do that. And I think that's it.
Great. I just want to point out that we do have a community contact sheet. We do get a fair number of questions. There's a lot of changing information as Bill had mentioned, and so we're doing our best to keep on top of it and be a good resource. So this is where residents and businesses can reach out to us if they do have any questions about city operations or just general guidance. And then we're happy to answer any city council questions if you have any.
Thanks, Seth. I'll just run through quickly and allow council to ask, and we'll start alphabetically. Councilmember Anderson, any follow-up for staff?
No question, just appreciation for all that you've done in terms of organizing the initiatives and public involvement and volunteers and the progress that people have made. I'm amazed again at how compliant or socially responsible our citizens are and how good things seem to be going in terms of social distancing. When you make observations from time to time. So hats off. Thanks for the good job. Keep it going.
Wonderful. Councilmember Carpenter, any thoughts?
Yes, well, thanks to all staff for all of your hard work during this difficult time. Question for Kristen regarding your presentation in terms of the screenings that we're doing now at the reception area that we have at the city offices. Do you foresee that being a permanent change?
Thank you, Councilmember Carpenter. I think that as long as there's the guidance in the social distancing, that we will continue to have those in place just for some additional protection. And as we look at reopening other facilities like the Civic Center or the Arts Center, we'll probably do similar best practice. But I think we'll just continue to follow the guidance, and at some point we did install ones that are temporary and can be removed fairly easily. So if the time comes where we're able to do that, then we'll reevaluate.
Great, perfect. And then also one other follow-up item. So I just wanted to acknowledge Jeff Hallwell for his inclusion in the Denver Post Business Journal today. Great article about Lone Tree businesses coming back to life. So great piece there, great exposure.
Thanks, Jay. All right, moving on to Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you to staff. Again, this is remarkable, everything that's being done to support the residents and the businesses. I love the birthday drive-bys and that's another way to stay out and about in the community too and see what's going on. So I appreciate things like that that brighten the day of citizens and those coming back to work. So thanks.
Thanks, Wynn. And then finally, our last but certainly not least, our Mayor Pro Tem Brunick.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, just one comment and then one question for Seth. My comment is the same on the birthday stuff. All over the Heritage Hills internal Facebook page was the coverage of 3 Lone Tree police coming in for a kid's birthday, and I have not seen a happier child ever. Am I just jumping up and down and screaming in delight over the police cars? It was just so great. And I can always mark how well we're doing as a council by the amount of feedback that I give in any given week. I usually consider myself lucky, you know, if it's less emails, but this would be the week I saw more emails than ever on both of that piece of the police support and then secondarily on the mask order. So just want to say that really appreciate everyone's hard work doing both those things, because you made my week really wonderful here. And then my question for Seth, one of the questions I'm getting quite, there seems to be some confusion in the community as we move to safer, the newest plan around parks and outdoor spaces and the ability to gather. Can you give us any guidance on, certainly I will direct people to contact the city directly, but the stance on whether or not people can be in parks that are throughout the city or on the grounds of the school, for example, to have a picnic or to be outside, that has not been allowed. I think people are confused as to whether or not that's now available to them under the newest order.
Yeah, I'll take a shot at that. I might ask Bill to fill in as well. So the short answer is yes, that people are allowed to gather. In fact, even on a call just late this afternoon with the deputy director of Tri-County, she mentioned, you know, specifically that gatherings of 10 people or less, as long as social distancing can be achieved, is expressly allowed. You know, there is a little bit of confusion in as far as, you know, picnic areas. Some of them are closed. I would say most of them are closed, although I've heard of others that are open, just to kind of discourage close gatherings. But I think things like what Chief Wilson was talking about, you know, the kind of the tailgate party or a socially distanced picnic would be allowed under the safer at home order. Bill or Kirk, anything else that you would add to that?
Yeah, I would only add that, you know, any of the outdoor spaces that do not allow for that 6-foot social distancing for groups of 10 or smaller are closed. So playgrounds are closed. Most of the picnic areas I've seen have been closed. So yeah, it's still that 10 people or less and social distancing 6 feet or more.
Perfect, thank you. And just one follow-on question around South Suburban. We know that they've opened the golf course, which we're super grateful for. Lots of happy golfers out there. Have they made any overtures on whether or not tennis or any of the other amenities have a plan yet?
Yeah, so tennis they have opened just in the last few days. They have kind of a tiered priority system for, I think they're even starting up lessons again. So district activities get first priority, reservations get second priority, and then walk-on gets third. And, you know, my observation has been that that's gone really well so far. That's just in Douglas County. So in Arapahoe, they'll start opening. I imagine they'll open the ones in Arapahoe County this Saturday, as Tri-County has just announced that they'll be going to safer at home for basically the rest of the metro area, it looks like. So yeah, tennis is open.
Perfect.
And as far as other facilities, I don't think there are any major changes to what's open. Bill or Kirk? I don't think so.
Nothing that I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think so, Seth.
Super, thank you. And again, really appreciate you guys keeping our current website up to date to, you know, refer to the many changing things. It's easy to understand how people are a little bit confused. And I super appreciate them reaching out, and I think it gives us some feedback on places that we could be communicating. My last comment is just thank the team for the outreach to the HOAs and with the mayor's letters and other things. I think those are really important communication models right now, because people just, as you say, you have to look at so many different places to get the data, that when we're able to do summaries like that out to the community, they're just invaluable. I know in my community, they turn those around in less than 24 hours to the entire residents, and that, you know, super, super valuable information coming out of the city that way. So thank you for that. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Council. And I think we have to give a shout out to Denise Kaufman too on the communications team for her great work in trying to keep everything up to date for us in these rapidly changing times, which we're all aware of. And I think again, great, as always, great feedback from Council. So appreciate your engagement. We now are moving back to what was our old normal. I'm excited to say that the business of the city is not just COVID, that we are actually moving forward with the planning for the new development on the east side of I-25. And we are blessed to be able to be potentially looking at some subdivision overviews in the next coming weeks. So with that, we're going to ask Kelly first to kind of give us a little refresher on the subdivision process overview, because it's been a long time since we've actually taken a look at something like that. So with that, I will turn it over to our Community Development Director and resident expert on all things Lone Tree, Kelly first.
Well, I don't know about that, but thank you, Mayor. You're absolutely right about the east side starting to develop, and we're going to be seeing more and more applications for requests to subdivide land. And that's not a type of application that the city sees with much regularity. So we wanted to just take a few minutes tonight to provide you with very high level overview of just the basics about subdivisions to just better prepare you for what you can expect in the coming weeks and months. So I'm not going to present any specific project or application tonight, and council is not being asked to decide anything. But of course, if you have general questions or comments along the way, just let me know. So briefly, I'll cover tonight what is a subdivision and what is the purpose of subdividing land, a little bit about Lone Tree's subdivision regulations and the subdivision review process. Next slide, please. So you'll recognize this subdivision at Lone Tree Parkway and Yosemite Street. This includes the charter neighborhood and the site of the Civic Center. This is a document that was recorded at Douglas County in 1981 and is an example of a subdivision plat. So a plat is essentially a map showing boundaries and dimensions of land being subdivided. It typically includes the locations of lots and streets, and easements and other property information, but not the actual development or improvements to the land itself. In general, a subdivision just means any parcel of land which is to be used for condominiums, apartments, or any other multiple dwelling units, or which is divided into 2 or more parcels. Subdivisions can be created for residential uses, but also for commercial, industrial, recreational, and other land uses. The purpose of a subdivision plat is to create a document of public record so that the land can then be sold. Next slide, please. So for example, if you've ever bought or sold property, you probably noticed that it's not described by address, but by parcel location. So it could be something like Lot 7, Block 1 of Filing 1 Lone Tree Estates. It's also described sometimes with a section, township, and range number. And these are considered legal descriptions, and they're based off of a very old coordinate system known as the Public Land Survey System that was originally established in 1785 and is still in use by most of the country today. Next slide. So in terms of the subdivision regulations, Colorado law imposes limits on subdividing land. A law passed in 1972, commonly referred to as Senate Bill 35, requires local approval process for subdivisions that create lots that are smaller than 35 acres. So the 35-acre exemption is really something that comes into play more so in counties and non-urban areas. But in Lone Tree, where development is more compact with smaller lots, subdivision is subject to regulations that we have contained in Chapter 17 of the Lone Tree Municipal Code. And the city did update that code a few years back in order to streamline some of the processes. But really the intent is the same. The intent is to evaluate the public health and safety aspects of the proposed subdivision, to ensure availability of services and facilities and certain commitments by the developer to pay for those public improvements, to evaluate the physical and natural characteristics of the property and appropriately design for the land as well as in accordance with city plans, And then just again, to provide for that accurate system to record land subdivisions. Next slide, please. So the city subdivision process really depends on the land that's being divided. Has it been subdivided before, or is this the first time? And for what purpose is it being divided? So I'll quickly describe the three main types of subdivision processes that the council will likely see in the foreseeable future. They are mainly either for single family detached development, attached housing or commercial development, or amendments to existing plats, also called replats. Next slide, please. So subdivision for single family detached development is the most involved and requires two steps, a preliminary plan and then a final plat. This example just happens to be a preliminary plan outside of the city because again, since we updated our code a little while ago, this process used to be 3 steps in our old code. It was a sketch plan, followed by a preliminary plan, followed by a final plat. So we consolidated those steps into 2 steps. Again, the first being a preliminary plan, which, as the name suggests, is really an evaluation of a bit kind of the bigger picture issues surrounding the property as it relates to the city's various plans and regulations. And it's intended to really look at the feasibility of the project and the various design considerations for the site. And this is when we work through some of the major issues with the applicant and with referral agencies and refine the design concept. So preliminary plans are often accompanied by other reports and studies that help us to evaluate the proposal. And these plans are not recorded with the county. They are reviewed by both the Planning Commission and the City Council. And then upon approval of the preliminary plan, the second step is the final plat. Next slide. The final plat is really more of a technical iteration of the preliminary plan. So this is showing the specific surveyed measurements, lot dimensions, and so on. Excuse me. And often there's an agreement that goes along with this between the owner and the city regarding the various commitments that are associated with public improvements. And along with the final plat will be usually a phase 3 drainage report, road construction plans, grading, erosion control, sedimentation plans, and other types of documentation along those lines. So if the final plat is consistent with the preliminary plan, it can be reviewed internally with referral agencies and approved by the city manager. The final plats are recorded with the Douglas County Clerk and Recorder's Office. So the Southwest Village by Shea Homes will be an example of a subdivision that follows that process. And we expect the first step, the preliminary plan application, to be submitted to the city in the coming weeks. And because of the very large size of that project, staff will come back to the council as we get a little bit closer, just to provide more of an overview of the specific elements that are going into that particular project. Next slide, please. So in the case of attached residential products like townhomes or commercial development, there's a one-step subdivision process referred to again as the final plat. These types of projects are usually smaller in scale, and while they're still reviewed by staff and referral agencies, they're usually far less involved than would be a plat for single-family detached development. This one happens to be a plat for the Schwab campus. These types of plats are heard by both the City Planning Commission and the City Council, and the approved plat is recorded with the county. The next project to follow that process, we believe, will be for a parcel of land on the east side that's going to be proposed for condominiums, whereby the land will be subdivided for the first time to accommodate that type of development. So again, that's a final plat. Next slide. Thanks. And then finally, the other category of the subdivision process is a replat. And really, this is just a process of amending an existing plat in some way. There's a wide range of amendment types that range from, technical corrections of a plat to adjusting a lot line to the addition of or reduction of the number of lots. So in general, when additional lots are being created, that's what kicks it into review and approval by the City Council. Often, just to wrap up, a separate application proposing the development of land will be submitted at the same time as a replat, but it can also proceed separately from the actual development application. So we expect that the next subdivision application that you will see will be a replat, and this is going to be for the land around the Ridgegate Light Rail Station that is already platted, but will be further subdivided to accommodate future apartments in that area. So just to wrap up, you can see there's a wide variety of types of subdivision applications. Each one is going to be reviewed against the city's subdivision regulations and with input from the city attorney, our public works folks, service providers, and the city's consulting surveyor. And staff will always present the council with a complete description and background and recommendation about the particular application with the staff report and all of the supporting materials. So with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Thanks, Kelly. Okay, I'm going to move, I guess, in reverse alphabetical order this time with Councilmember Shaw. Do you have questions, comments?
Thanks, Kelly. This was a good refresher and very informative. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Carpenter, I guess you're always in the middle, so it's kind of neither here nor there, or whatever order I go in. But Jay, any thoughts?
I'm used to it. No questions, but just a comment as well. So yeah, thanks for dumbing it down. You did a great job of setting up all the context. It's a very involved process, but I appreciate all the context and the way you presented it to us. So thanks. Very helpful.
Councilmember Anderson, any thoughts?
Yes, this was not a refresher for me. First time through, so a lot to try to absorb, Kelly. Appreciate your outline. A question in terms of what we've seen over the last couple of years in terms of site improvement plans. How do those plans relate to this process here in terms of this planning?
Yeah, so you're used to seeing site improvement plans, and those are for the actual development of a property. So those are, the review of the building and the landscaping and all of the, what I call the vertical improvements to a property. A lot of times those are happening for property that's already been platted. So you wouldn't see necessarily a plat coming along with the site improvement plan. But if that land has not already been subdivided or needs to be further divided to accommodate that development, you'll see a separate application for the plat. Like I said, sometimes they run together, the SIP and a plat, and sometimes the plat comes beforehand. Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And then Mayor Pro Tem Brunick, Kath, anything?
Yeah, no questions for me. Thanks so much, Kelly. As always, great info.
All right, and I will echo that, Kelly. I think it's a good refresher or primer for us as we move into this process. And what I know for sure is we cannot wait to get into it. So looking forward to seeing more good work and progress in the city of Lone Tree. So thanks for that. All right, I would also just suggest and encourage council to follow up with Kelly if any additional things that might come to mind. I know she's a great resource for all of us. All right, next on the agenda, we're going to have an update on our 2020 Lone Tree City Council election. And again, I'm going to hope everyone voted today, even though the city of Lone Tree didn't hold an election. We had a number of important elections that affect our community. So I'm going to turn it over to our city clerk, Jay Robb.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Again, like the mayor said, even in these strange times, it was an election day for some of our neighboring special districts, and you should look at for some of the results in the days that follow if you voted in for any of these boards of directors. And a big shout out to Denise Kaufman for helping us get the word out about these special district elections. I know we wanted to let voters know where they needed to go, whether it was one of the polling place elections or the mail ballot election for South Metro. So thank you, Denise, for helping us get the word out on all of those elections. And as you all know, today would have been the day that the Lone Tree City Council election would have concluded. And it's good for us to go on the record and remind the public that the City Council election was not canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Instead, we actually followed best practices and state and local statutes guiding municipal elections. And these are the processes that we went through and the deadlines that we satisfied, including hosting a candidate orientation. And we received ballots between February 3rd and March 2nd. We advertised the election, thanks to, again, to Denise and social media outlets. And once the deadline for receiving petitions concluded, we only had 3 candidates, our incumbents, Mayor Millet, Mayor Pro Tem Brunick, and Councilmember Shaw. And so once that deadline passed, as the designated election official, I was able to cancel the election. That cancellation was properly published, and we also notified the Department of Local Affairs. Moving forward, we are scheduling a virtual swearing in for our next City Council meeting. And it sounds like, I'm sure this is the first time Lone Tree will have a virtual swearing in, and we'll kind of outline what this is going to look like in 2 weeks. I know that everyone's excited to be back together. It's unfortunate we have to do it online, but this will start the new 4-year terms for Mayor Millet, Mayor Pro Tem Brunick, and Councilmember Shaw. And then the council can get on with its business and hopefully return to something that resembles normal later this summer. And I did want to bring up one extra point, that the Lone Tree ballot box at the municipal building at 9220 Kimmer Drive will actually be getting used for the June 30th primary elections. And that location has been added to the Douglas County election website. And so we will ramp up to receive voters coming through the east side of the building to drop off those ballots later in June. And with that, I will turn it over to any questions.
Okay, I will start. I don't think there are questions regarding this, so I'm going to, instead of going through everybody's name again, just say that I'm going to pause for a second. Are there any questions from council on Jay's presentation? I didn't think so. So we are going to move on to our consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the April 21st, 2020 regular meeting and claims for the periods of April 14th to April 27th, 2020. I will look for a motion from council on the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda. Jay Carpenter.
Second.
Go ahead.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I will ask our city clerk to take a roll call vote.
Council members: Anderson.
Yay.
Carpenter.
Aye.
Shaw.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Brunick.
Aye.
And Mayor Millet.
Aye. We have a unanimous approval of our consent agenda. We're moving on now to our community development action. And we've got Fidelity Parking Variance Project VA 20-13, and honored to have Mike Pepper, who is the property owner, and our awesome staff member Jennifer Drybread presenting for us tonight.
Well, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. So good to be here and seeing you all tonight. The request tonight is for approval of the applicant's request to increase the number of parking spaces at their existing facility for Fidelity by 7 spaces, which when added to the existing parking represents 53% more spaces than the minimum parking requirement. And the zoning code basically requires that any request for additional parking exceeding 10% of the minimum be processed as a variance requiring City Council approval. And I would just say that it seems sort of silly to go through this process for 7 spaces, but we really look at the standards were set up so that the intent is to have neither an oversupply nor an undersupply. And if you have an oversupply of parking and a field and sort of a sea of parking spaces with no parking, that can create more stormwater runoff. It can create sort of a heat island effect and then more sprawl. So we want to be very cognizant that we don't provide more parking that's needed, but then also on the other hand, we want to make sure that there's facilities aren't underparked and businesses can't bring customers in as they need to. And we have done these kind of parking variances exceeding the minimum for projects like Charles Schwab and Kiewit. In those cases, they came with the SIP project, and so council acted on them at that time. Excuse me. In this case, we will be processing or propose to process an administrative SIP amendment following council's action tonight. So with this gives you an idea of where Fidelity Investments, I'm sure you probably know where that's located, just to the north of Mike's Camera and just to the east of In-N-Out. Next slide.
Yeah, take a drink, Jennifer. Take another.
Sorry about that.
No, it's allergy season.
So these two photographs show where the property is located. The one on the left was taken from County Line Road, and it shows an embankment of grass area where the additional parking spaces will be provided. And the idea is to have some additional landscaping that will be included to help screen some of that additional parking while still ensuring that the traveling public can see the Fidelity sign. And then to the right is just a view as you come in off that main drive off Westview, and then looking to the east, kind of showing off to the left where parking would be provided. Next slide. So again, the applicant's requiring 7 additional spaces. That will bring the total number to 43. The required minimum parking for this site is 28 spaces based on 1 space per 250 square feet, that should read. Next slide. So the applicant's request again is 53% more than the required minimum, or 15 additional spaces. So again, this exceeds the 10%. Next slide. So this is an aerial that shows where the proposed parking is located in the red in that lawn area, and just 7 additional parking spaces at this location. And as you can see, it really will have no appreciable impact on the adjoining properties given where this is located. Next slide. So this application was referred out to South Metro Fire Rescue. They recommended locations for no parking signs, but they were okay with the additional spaces. This application was also discussed with Public Works, Jacob James, our city engineer, who also had no concerns. Next slide. So with a variance, there are criteria in the zoning code in section 16-2630 that are required to be looked at and addressed in this case to ensure that the variance and the request is sensitive to and compatible with adjoining, existing, and future land uses. Again, you can see from the photo there'll be little appreciable impact from the added parking on the adjoining uses. Number 2, that the variance will not adversely impact the natural environment through unwarranted or undesirable grading, altering of drainages, or vegetation removal. Again, only sod is being removed in this case, and shrubs will be added for screening. Number 3, that the variance request maintains a desirable balance with the overall bulk and massing of building architecture. In this case, it doesn't affect architecture in any way. Next slide. And 4, promotes other community goals as set forth in the city's comprehensive plan. In looking at this, really allowing for the growth, planning and growth management of properties and practices that work to retain, grow, and attract businesses and commercial. And in this case, Fidelity feels that they have, an increasing demand and have for some time for additional parking. And in fact, we did add more parking some years back. The City Council approved a variance in that request as well. So it's good to know that businesses are thriving, especially in this time period. And then number 5, no substantial detriment to the public is created and the intent of the parking standards is supported, as parking will be provided in a reasonable and balanced manner. And again, this is the idea of not having either an undersupply nor an oversupply of parking. Next slide. So this is the recommended motion. There are no suggested or recommended conditions with that. And with that, I would like to introduce Mike Pepper, who is the owner rep for the property, and we can then open it up for any questions council might have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, welcome, Mr. Pepper. Wonderful to have you joining us virtually, and congratulations on a successful business building there. Things are going well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Jennifer did a great job in explaining all of our motivations and the circumstances there. So I will be brief with the council's time. Since my family bought the building 5 years ago, Fidelity has continued to prosper and thrive. But they have consistently asked for more parking, and with the growth in their business and the type of clientele they have, where most of the people who are customers, they like to drive in and see the Fidelity staff member and talk about their money person to person. And so they've consistently asked for more parking. There have been some periods of time when the customers or the employees would overflow and park at Mike's Camera, especially when the beauty supply went out of business, and they would park in the alleyway next to the car wash, and it was kind of, it was getting to be a little bit of a problem. So over the last couple of years, we've looked at ways to increase the parking. At one point, Jennifer and I were brainstorming about 12 spaces, and that seemed to be a burden. And we had too many trees to deal with, and so we asked our engineer to look at a revised plan so we could retain the trees and not chew up a bunch of landscaping. And so that's how we came to the 7. If I could ask that we back up the slides and show the aerial view, then you'll see in red there, we've tried to be thoughtful with how we put the spaces there. You'll see the footnotes that says we will add additional shrubbery and landscaping. There is an easement there, so Jennifer said, we're going to look for some shrubs so that we don't impair the easement that runs on the berm there. And also part of our intention here is to create enough self-contained parking so that we avoid some of the issues that might come up with In-N-Out Burger. You'll see on the west side there's a footnote that says new median nose location on the far west side of our site. And the folks at In-N-Out reached out to me and said that the fire department needed to get a turnaround in there. And so we granted that, and In-N-Out has agreed to help us improve that access lane, even though their access will be closed off. And so just trying to be thoughtful about avoiding, too many people parking in that alley and leaving it open for the fire department, and trying to keep Fidelity happy. So I appreciate working with Jennifer on how to present, how to design the
additional parking spaces. And I promise to be brief, and Jennifer, really thank you for your help and providing a balanced explanation on our request.
Thank you, Mr. Pepper. I think we're going to move back to the motion slide, but I want to review with council to see if they have questions. And while they're queuing back up that motion slide, I want to just say we appreciate you being a good neighbor. Thank you for working with your partners, your next door neighbors at In-N-Out to make those accommodations. So with that, hey Jay, I'm going to start with you first, Councilmember Carpenter. So you get to go first for a change. Any questions for either staff or Mr. Pepper?
No questions. It seems like a very reasonable request and is greatly needed, and I appreciate him working hand in hand with staff on this.
Thanks, Jay. Okay, Councilmember Shaw, any questions for or thoughts from you?
I was just curious to be sure there will still be enough area to push snow onto during the winter for snow storage. With these extra spaces, that's extra pavement to clear.
Yep. Do you want to throw up the plan view of the parking lot again? Thanks everybody for doing such a great job with the slides. So, Mr. Pepper, do you want to speak to that, or would you prefer staff to address?
That's a very good question, actually, and the grade. The grade over there does not prohibit our snowplow company from moving the snow to the edges adjacent to the new spaces. And usually where we stack the snow is on the east side. There's a little more maneuverability there, and then also we try to stack some in the on the south facing side where it can get some sun. So you see in the lower right hand corner of the site plan, there's a box with a diagonal hash line where there is no parking allowed because of the geometry. And we've asked our snow removal company to use that south facing side there for snow. To date, Fidelity has not given us any complaints about our ability to move the snow.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else, Wynn?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, Councilmember Anderson, thoughts?
No questions. I'm fine with the request. The new spaces blend in very well on the north side with the existing spaces, and the needs are important, and I think we should meet them.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Brunick, anything?
Yeah, no questions for me. Thank you so much.
Thanks. And again, I think the longer I've been on council, the more I've recognized that parking is an art, not a science. And I think Fidelity has been there for a long enough period of time to recognize what they need to serve their clients. So I think you're, I appreciate you being responsive to the folks in the community. So I don't have any questions either. Seeing that, I will ask council for a motion.
I move to approve the proposed parking variance VA 20-13.
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, excuse me, roll call vote. Thank you. Thank you to J. Rob, our awesome city clerk.
Council members Anderson.
Aye.
Carpenter.
Aye.
Shaw.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Brunick.
Aye.
Mayor Millet.
Aye. So we have unanimous approval. Again, Mr. Pepper, thank you for your investment in our community. Thank you for being with us tonight to present this, and we wish you continued success with the property. At that point, we conclude the agenda, everything but our council comments, and as has been the practice during our virtual meetings, council has given me the privilege of making those comments. And once again, I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. And I want to speak a little bit to the face covering order that will go into effect on Friday. So the mantra "with privilege comes responsibility" was ingrained to me and my family as a child. And Lone Tree has been given a great responsibility in the privilege of reopening in the metro area. And with that privilege, we do have the responsibility of doing it right. As social distancing practices relax and we begin a careful reopening of business, coronavirus cases are expected to increase. So we must do all we can to protect our community, keep the COVID-19 curve flattened, and position Lone Tree businesses to not just successfully reopen, but to remain open. Thus, after thoughtful deliberation and the unanimous support of City Council, an order to require cloth face coverings in indoor retail within the City of Lone Tree will go into effect this Friday. This challenging decision was taken to best protect the health and well-being of the residents, workers, and visitors to our city, and to minimize the risk to our economy from a localized outbreak. There is not an ideal solution to the health, economic, and social devastation brought about by this pandemic. Given the limited access to testing, tracking, and tracing, blocking transmission of the disease is the best thing we can do to keep our community safe and to allow our fragile economy to move forward. Thanks to all who have provided feedback on the face covering, those in favor and those opposed. As a spouse, a parent, and one of 7 siblings, I am very familiar with people telling me that I am wrong. And I respect their right to do so, with the exception potentially of my children. But the support of the residents and the business owners and employees who agree with the decision is very much appreciated. But if you disagree with this requirement, I would humbly request that during these challenging times, you choose to respect the order anyway and show care and respect for those who work and shop in our retail stores. Allow our community to continue to focus on responding to the public health and the economic challenges from this devastating pandemic. We are stronger together, and together we can lift up Lone Tree. Stay safe, stay healthy, and let's respect each other. And with that, our council meeting is concluded. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We are adjourned.